Hey guys, Dave Frederick here with The Growing Leader with this week's Leaders Tip. A few years ago I was involved in a church and things were going well, and then all of a sudden, seemingly out of the blue, there was this explosion. There was an eruption of anger and frustration against the pastor, and it took everybody by surprise, seemed almost random, but it had a huge effect on the church, very negative, and it was very intense. Some of you have probably had an experience like that. You know what I'm talking about. It took a while. We didn't understand even what was going on or why it happened. It was in that context I first came to hear about a concept called gray stamps. And this was really helpful for me in understanding what happened and also how to stop that from happening in the future in a church or organization I was in part of in the future. So what are gray stamps? Well, it's a takeoff on the old S&H green stamps. When I was a kid, I could go to a grocery store and collect S&H green stamps, and you'd get a card with a bunch of little squares on the card, and every time you made a purchase you would get a certain number of green stamps based on how much money you spent. And you take those stamps and put them on the card, and when you fill up the card you can turn it in, and when you turn it in you would get prizes or discounts or things like that. It was one of the early loyalty programs. Well, in an organization of any kind, people will often collect gray stamps. Not green stamps, gray stamps. And gray stamps happen this way. Imagine you and I are in an organization together, and I have a card with your name on it. And every time you do something in the gray area, I'm going to collect a stamp on you. And the gray area is this. When you do something that bugs me, maybe it hurts me, it annoys me, it's frustrating, I'm going to collect a gray stamp on you. And when I say gray, I mean that thing you did isn't big enough that I feel like, oh, I have to go talk to you. It doesn't feel like a big deal, so I kind of just dismiss it. But the truth is, it's actually not small enough for me to really let it go. So it's not big enough to talk about, but it's not small enough I can just let it go. It's in this gray area. And so whenever you do something that's in that gray area, I collect a stamp on you. Now, what happens is, when I fill up that card, I'm going to turn it in. And when I turn it in, there's going to be an explosion. There's going to be an explosion, an eruption of the anger and frustration, whatever I felt that's been building up over time and never been talked about. Now, here's the thing. For me, it feels totally justified. I've got this whole list, this whole card full of things that you've been doing. And I'm frustrated that you haven't changed. You haven't stopped doing them. Now, for you, that feels totally, you're clueless because I've never come and talked to you. It's out of the blue. It feels like you've been blindsided by this random attack. Unfortunately, it never stays between you and I. When there's a gray stamp eruption or explosion, it always pours out and touches all the people around us. Ultimately, it can really hinder an organization. It can split a whole church. So what do you do about that? Well, a couple things. If you're the leader or you're someone who has any influence, just begin talking about it. Making people aware of the whole concept of gray stamps can take care of things right there. Once people are aware, they can begin to address it. The second thing you can do is make a commitment to each other to not let the little things pile up. Make a commitment that you're going to come and talk about the little things, and you can just say, look, hey, this is kind of a gray stamp, but it's bugging me and I can't get past it. And you'll find that 90% of those are dealt with immediately. It takes a very short conversation because whatever happened wasn't intentional anyways, and it's very easy to resolve. But just bringing it up means nothing, no gray stamp is collected. So make a commitment to talk about the little things. And you'll find that will solve a whole bunch of problems and it'll enable you to avoid a gray stamp explosion.